Welcome to Stuff You Missed in History Class, a production of iHeartRadio. Hello and happy Friday. I'm Holly Fry.
And I'm Tracy V. Wilson.
We talked about campaign finance this week.
Yeah. So, Holly, what led you to do this? Were you
I
just
don't remember.
curious? Okay.
It seems like 100 years ago, and the tunnel was a tight crawl and
Yeah.
miserable.
When you told me that was what you were working on, I was like getting ready to go visit family. So I just I had I was not thinking but I was like, what? Wonder what prompted that, because it's such a specific.
I'm sure it was a discussion with my husband or one of my friends, or it was like, why do they need money all the time?
Mhm.
You know, like we've all had that discussion when it's like, one more email and I'm going to throw my phone across the room.
Mhm.
And then it was like, well, because they do need money. Surely there are rules here.
Mhm.
I know there are rules. How did that happen? That's, how all shows start, right?
Mhm.
I know there must be a reason for that. Let's look it up. And then I was like, oh, that'll be neat. And I actually got really into the Swartwout scandal because that was pretty fun. That part of it is fun because it's long ago. Not quite as directly impactful on our day-to-day lives. Yeah, and it is one of those things, like I was saying at the end of part 2, like I find all of this very depressing because it really is like, if you have power and money, you will continue to have power and money. And if you don't, well, you're in trouble and you better hustle.
Yeah.
Which is not a great message to live with in your heart. But
No.
I still think it's important to understand that that's how it works and what's been happening and how we got here.
Mhm.
And hopefully, it will make people at least understand that when I do remember a discussion that happened a while back, but whatever our most recent conversation that really led to this episode was, of like that question of, okay, but wait, why did they say if I don't raise X amount of money, then I'm out of the race?
Mhm.
Like, why is that a rule? And it's not so much a rule as like a recognition that like you can't compete if you're below a certain threshold. I mean, I think it is a rule, but I don't know. I haven't looked that part up. Yeah, it makes it really disheartening, I know, for people who maybe want to support candidates that are not, from money. I mean, most of our political candidates, not always, but a lot of them still come from families with money.
As someone in Massachusetts.
Right? Right? But there are instances where people who are not that are managing to run campaigns and get elected, but there's still bias there that's inherent of
Mhm.
like money equals power. I mean, that horrible quote of like two things are important,
Mhm.
money, and I don't remember the other thing. Like, it's still kind of true. Not fun to think about. But important, because if you understand the system, then you are more equipped to understand your place in it and how you might be able to change it.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
PSA for the day. I feel like I would rather talk about kitties and raccoons and ravens anymore, but
Mhm.
I'm becoming a crazy woman who just wants to stare at the animals on my deck and ignore the real world, but that's not a very good way to live either.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Listen,
I don't know.
would I nominate one of my ravens to political office? Maybe. They're fun. They understand group dynamics. They seem to work out their problems.
Mhm.
That's a rich fantasy life that we should not indulge too much, but it's fun to think about once in a while. Yeah, I also, an informed populace is gonna make better voting choices anyway. So
That's at least the theory.
the more you
Like,
know.
that's been the theory going back
Yeah.
to the.
It doesn't always work. This gets into something we've talked about so much, right? Media literacy and understanding where your information is coming from and what sources are trustworthy and what sources are biased, and that gets trickier and trickier as we go on, and it continues, I think, to get trickier and trickier. A lot of what is going on in current events in entertainment with the strikes that are going on,
Mhm.
much of that is because there are efforts to replace humans with AI creations,
Mhm.
which sounds good on paper to someone who wants to save money, I'm sure, but like that also is going to make it harder and harder to discern the trustworthiness of your news sources.
We've talked about some uses of AI in our unearthed episodes
Mm-hmm.
that to me feel like good and appropriate uses of AI.
100%.
Like with an indigenous community's permission, sending a drone into a cave and having AI help spot artwork in that cave.
Yes.
And then having a human being then work with those results. Like that's like we're protecting the cave, we're protecting the artwork that's in there. We're probably spotting stuff that would not have been spotted with just a human being on their own trying to either go into that cave, potentially damaging it, or like looking at photos. Like that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But having Chat GPT write the new articles for your website,
Not great.
not a fan.
Not great. And I recognize that like in the ongoing strikes with the Writers Guild and SAG-AFTRA, that's related to, fictional stuff, but
Mhm.
like this is creeping into things like news sources and whatnot. So I didn't want people to think I misunderstood what
Right.
was
Sure, sure,
going
sure,
on
sure.
there. But they are related because this is a trend that's going on in all media, both creative and theoretically informational.
Yeah.
Which sometimes gets real creative. I'm going to ask you a question completely unrelated to all of this
Oh, great.
because
Great.
I have found myself being like, do I have depression right now, or am I just living in a world
Oh,
where I
no.
know things that I don't like? What has been making you the happiest in the last week?
Oh, so, I went to visit my parents,
Yes.
and I feel like I have a pretty good relationship with my parents, but a number of things are stressful, and so I wanted something to read while I was there that would not be a stressful read,
Yeah.
and the book that I got was called Legends and Lattes. Legends and Lattes is a book about an orc who gives up fighting to open a coffee shop.
I love this.
Yeah, and like there is a stressful thing that does happen, but everything is it plays out in such like a kind, found family community building kind of way that yeah, it was a very good choice of reading material to read in my, while on a visit to see my parents.
Is there lots of beautiful description of coffee?
Yeah, I don't really want to spoil. It's hard to spoil anything about this book. It's literally about an orc who starts a coffee shop and like the process of creating the coffee shop menu and all of that. But along the way, there is an invention of biscotti, essentially, and of chocolate croissants. Yeah, if as someone who spent a lot of my 20s and early 30s in coffee shops, I had a big affinity for this book, and pre-ordered the second one as soon as which is, obviously I don't know if it's gonna be about the same character, but set in the same world by the same person. I pre-ordered the next one, after that. So how about you? What's making you happy?
The thing that always helps my brain, and I find myself doing it without any conscious decision, and then I go, "Uh-oh, I've been doing this for too long," is always creative things,
Mhm.
and, often it is designing fabric prints.
Nice.
Which, is just like a good way to make order out of chaos
Mhm.
for me. I feel like, especially if like I want these components in a fabric print. I have been doing this for a very long time as a hobby. My favorite thing on earth is to come up with somewhat ridiculous but hopefully joyous floral prints that have Star Wars elements to them.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I have a lot of clothes that are that,
Yeah.
'cause then I'll have them printed and made into things. And I have I had not been doing it for a couple months just because I've been too busy, and it's like I can't set aside time to, I mean, at that point, like when you're working in Photoshop, there's a lot of
Mhm.
meticulous stuff. Here is a great place where AI has become helpful, right?
Mhm.
Programs like Photoshop now, and even on your phone, depending on what phone you have, but I think most of them do this now, like the ability to isolate an item from a background has gone from painstakingly erasing the outline of it and trying not to miss any details and
Mhm.
then separating it that way to now just saying select the object from this picture, and
Mhm.
it's not 100%, but I'd put it in the 85 to 90 territory,
Yeah.
which makes that kind of thing a lot faster because then you're doing less of the meticulous part. It's kind of like your mise en place for art. Like you can have all your pieces ready super fast and then you can just play making actual art, which is really, really fun.
Yeah.
And I like clothes and fabrics, so I like to envision
Yeah.
what they will be as I am goofing around with them.
Yeah. This conversation has reminded me a bit of a podcast that I used to listen to all the time, and the only reason that I stopped was I stopped having so much podcast listening time, and that was Pop Culture Happy Hour from NPR.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're still doing this, but for as long as I was listening to it, they ended their episodes with "What's making you happy," and they would kind of go around the room, and they would each say what was making them happy that week, which was, always brighten my day a little bit.
I need it. That and Agnes, our deck raccoon,
Yeah?
has brought her 5 babies to visit many times.
Oh.
And as a caveat to anyone listening, like, we didn't ask the raccoons to come to the deck. We started putting out food for birds, and they started showing up and eating, and we noticed Agnes was pregnant, or I think she appeared to obviously being a nursing mom when she first showed
Mhm.
up. And since she has come to think our deck is a safe place, we do not want them to think we're safe.
Right,
Right, you
sure.
want them to retain
You are
their
not habituating the
No, because it's
raccoons
just
to your presence.
gonna put them at risk when they think humans are okay, and
Also rabies.
and also rabies, and also, like, just they're a wild animal. They're not meant to be my pet. As much as I would love to pick them up and hug and kiss them, no. So keep them scared. But we do on occasion, this is another thing we do only infrequently because you don't want them to also lose their ability to hunt and forage for themselves.
Mhm.
But once in a while, we'll put out a couple of boiled eggs on the deck.
Mm.
And we don't usually seem to have good luck catching whoever gets it. It's either them, there's a possum that comes too. There is a very little possum that's been coming, that I call Jeremy for no reason, who I think is the baby of our regular visitor, Blossom the possum. Listen, I have become the real world Linda Belcher when it comes to the raccoons and possums in our neighborhood. But, we had not seen them finding the eggs until the other night, and it was the cutest thing I have ever seen.
I am imagining what it would look like, and it sounds very adorable to
I
me.
will send you video as I
Okay.
tried to hold the camera up to the glass, but not in a way that showed me so that
Mhm.
I could capture it and they wouldn't be like, "Oh, it's fine if she's standing there." Because I don't, like I said, I want them to stay feral.
Right.
They're cute as pie. My instinct is to be Elmira Duff and want to scoop them up and kiss them. Not good for them or us. So anyway, raccoons are making me happy. Raccoons and fabric. Find joy where you can. If
Mhm.
you are about to have a weekend that includes time off, I hope you find all the joy, regardless of what that is that brings it to you, as long as you're not hurting anybody else. If you don't have time off, I still hope that you find some little moments of joy, whether that is feeding animals or reading a book. This book sounds very good, Tracy.
I enjoyed it a lot.
I am not really into fantasy stuff, and I'm like, but that sounds good. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, I hope you find something that delights you, and whether that tickles your brain or just kind of lets you relax. Any of the above is great. We all need more of it all the time, in my opinion. We will be right back here tomorrow with a classic episode, and then on Monday, there'll be another brand new one.
Stuff You Missed in History Class is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.